Thank you, everyone. And we'll now turn the speaker over to Nina. Thank you very much for joining us, Nina.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be with all of you and to practice with you this morning. Um, yeah, I am very honored to be asked to talk about my story. And so I don't have a whole lot to say, but I'll tell you, my path. And then if you have any questions for me, I thought, we can open it up to that. So I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I'm in a part of Los Angeles that's close to Griffith Park. I'm pointing back here because that's where it is, this beautiful big park. And I was born in a building that's now a Scientology building, not too far from here, which is kind of interesting. And I didn't really realize that when I moved into this area. But I grew up in Santa Monica, which is a beachside little town. Okay, so you're nodding your head. Some of you maybe heard of it. And I love it there. It just became too expensive to live there. And in this neighborhood, I did my yoga teacher's training in 2005. And it was this great studio that's also no longer there that I could walk to. And I took classes from a man named Jim Akimoto, who was this wonderful yoga teacher who also doesn't teach yoga anymore. All this impermanence, it's like my whole story is full of impermanence as for all of us, I guess. So I just loved this man's class. And I thought if he ever does a training, I'm going to do it. I won't teach yoga, but I'll do that training just for, my own personal, which I've heard so many people say now, just to deepen my practice. And then you end up teaching. So I was so nervous about teaching yoga. The first class I taught, I think it was 6:30 in the morning, and I was crying afterwards. I called my mom. I don't know. I don't think they liked me. And all these people had great feedback. And since then, I've taught a bunch of retreats with Angel City, but let me back up a little bit. When we did our training, Jim said, if you'd like to learn about Buddhism and have a laugh, there's this guy, Brad Warner. So I got his book, right? I got Hardcore Zen. And there were so many moments in that book of just truth and the way he described things in such simple terms really also struck me. Um, and he wasn't here in Los Angeles at that point, but shortly after that, I think it was 2006, he and his wife at the time were moving here to Los Angeles. And so Jim came over and had New Year's with my husband at the time, who's no longer my husband, but there you go again, right? Um, and we're good friends, and I'm very happy about that. Jim said, did you know that Brad's coming to LA? And I said, no. And so I looked it up, and the place that they had rented was in Santa Monica, right next to my preschool. So when I got there, I thought, this is synchronistic. How cool, right? This is right. And so I went in and I was nervous, new people, and I wanted to sit perfectly still, as I've seen many people do. And of course, I got up and, fell over. So I fell right into Zen, I like to say. And so years of practicing with Brad and having that group evolve, people come, people go. There was a core central group of us that were leaders at the time. And that blossomed into us taking Jukai in 2013, I believe it was. And the next year, 2014, a few of us ordained. So I ordained with Brad then, and it was very practical, the ordination. Like he said, oh, what happened was we were renting a different place, and we do donations, right? You can donate if you want to donate. Don't worry if you can't donate, no pressure. And someone donated and Brad wasn't there. And they said, can I take my donation back? Because Brad wasn't here. And we said, okay, sure, of course. We told Brad that story and he said, I think it's time for some of you to ordain so people can feel that this is a real teacher speaking, not for him, but in that lineage. So it was very practical to ordain that way. And two of the people that I ordained with are not really practicing anymore. And one of them lives, well, my two like Dharma sisters live in other areas. So I don't see them, but every year around the time we ordained, I like to send them love and check in. So after I ordained, actually before that, I started going to Tassajara, and that's really where um, I did most of my formal training. So Tassajara in Central California, Suzuki. Okay, you guys know about Tassajara. This beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. And I worked so hard there and laughed and cried and again was, nervous about putting the robes on and learning how to do that and bowing at the right place all the time. And I met some really wonderful long-term friends from that experience and was very lucky to do that for years. I do a camping trip with some of my yoga students, and that's in Big Sur, which is not far from the Ventana Wilderness where Tassajara is. So that would be more of my formal, like in what was called Dogen Sangha at the time, which was right before Angel City. In that group, we went from wearing the robes to not wearing the robes. We went back and forth depending on what Brad was kind of feeling at the time. And I was fine either way. I'm a California girl. I'm cool with being casual. And I was learning to be more formal and respect. I think the nervousness comes from respect for the lineage in both yoga and Zen. I want to, be respectful and honor that beautiful lineage that you can trace. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? It's just it's beautiful. Hi, Kitty. Um, so I would go to Tassajara, and that would be sometimes my time of practicing with robes, and then I come back and we'd sort of be more casual. But what also came out of being ordained is officiating weddings, which was not something I expected. So the year I ordained, my friends Morgan and Daniel, we sat down for dinner and they said, well, we have some news. And I said, oh, me too. And they said, you go first. And I said, I'm ordaining. Isn't that like wonderful and crazy? And they said, oh, perfect, because we're getting married and we want you to officiate our wedding. So that was a lovely moment, which I'll never forget. And I've officiated 12 weddings. I've officiated quite a few weddings, and they're mostly not formal Buddhist weddings, but every single one, they want me to wear my robes. It's so interesting. The family's Catholic and they want me to wear my robes. it's it's funny. So yeah, so that is a beautiful thing that's happened through ordaining. And recently things at the center have shifted, so Brad's no longer there. Maybe you all know this already. And things are evolving again. And I'm so grateful that Angel City is there and has survived this very strange time of this pandemic that we all went through. And yeah, really honored to be there. I'm caregiving for my mom right now, which is a really, really, really beautiful and tricky and challenging time for both of us. So I'm not able to be there as much as I'd like to. My mom still lives in Santa Monica, which is 15 miles away from here, but takes an hour and a half because it's Los Angeles often to get back and, one way. So, so yeah, I lost my father when I was 9 in an accident, and my mom and I were there. So it's been my mom and I, since then. It's been it's been a challenge, to say the least. So, I mean, my parents were always kind of open to spirituality. So I was open to a lot of things kind of early. And losing someone like that so early in life, I think, you know, the whole idea of impermanence was right there, you know? So, yeah, I can't think of what else I wanted to say. I know that's kind of a really short talk, but that's my story. And I thought, if there's any questions, yeah, I'm teaching yoga. I'm living, I'm living here in LA in my little bungalow, and it's nice to get to practice when I do. And I mostly put the robes on, when we do our retreats now and when I officiate weddings. So I feel a little rusty, but it's always like beautiful to come back to that, to keep coming back and to have that again reminder of this beautiful lineage that we're in, which is so special. So, yeah, does anyone thank you. Does anyone have anything?
Thank you so much, Nina.
My pleasure.
Uh, it's been a great honor to be part of Angel City as well, my side. And through this connection that Rocky Mountain Zen, I think is we're learning a lot from the community. And then with that, I have a sort of a question because I am training Dave right now, especially through this big transitional time of Angel City. And he has kind of chosen to be part of this kind of what I'm, we're kind of part of in a, I don't know what's the word, official, traditional. I want to be careful about the word traditional because I'm very intentional about using the tradition to describe now over close to 70-year-old non-Japanese North American Soto Zen as well. But um, I like I said, part of the reasons I wanted to come and share your story with us was that I do not immediately foresee the emergence of the monastics that we describe in Soto Zen tradition in Japan, in Rocky Mountains. And we have a few in Canada. But as our founder, the person who started Rocky Mountains Zen said, I feel like we don't have enough infrastructure to make that kind of thing happen. And to expect that in the kind of front line of North American Zen mission is almost unreasonable. And then Brad definitely is one of the pioneers. I have my own thought on this, like authentic experience at individual level and letting go of those to sort of be there's a whole different level and layer to that. And yet this whole cherishing the individual experience of authentic practice, I think that's where a lot of people are in this kind of, in terms of the page we're on. In I don't know, sorry, I'm kind of haven't really formed that question, but as someone who have been training in a relatively kind of new waves, especially with someone like Brad, and walking on this path, how do you sort of is there any sort of, you already shared this in the story, a thing that you can share with my friends who's also paving the path, like almost from the scratch right now? And that's something I feel like I because I go back and forth between this and that over here. uh, I would appreciate your sort of, I don't know, insight uh, as a person who kind of ventured into this path a little rather more casually than this formal path. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to go in this, very casual way. I don't know. I have so much respect, as I said, for the lineage. And I think that we live our lot like Zen is a daily practice, right? The way we live is our practice. That's fundamental, right? Like the base of it. Um, yeah, I'm not really sure as far as like going in and out of a more formal practice. It's 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 difficult, I think. Um, but that's kind of the way it just naturally occurred for me. And there are some feelings of like, should it be, should I be on a mountain somewhere wearing my robes every day, living that life like a should? But that's not like, especially being the caregiver for my mom, that's not really possible for me right now. I think there is a very beautiful, valid way to be a layperson, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, and still be deeply connected to the tradition and the roots of it. And of course, this is, feels very, like you said, North American, like we we like to make things our own here, right? We have these ideas of freedom and individuality, I guess, that are really inherent in our culture. So I don't know if that answers the question, but those are kind of the thoughts that come up
Oh,
around.
thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's yes. Thank you.
Okay,
That's really
good.
helpful.
Thank you so much. I'm piping in here because I do have a really unique question. So, like yourself, I do have caregiving responsibilities not only for two young boys, but also a wife with some medical challenges. And I did when I was curious to see your insight into that beautiful balance. I know you've provided some insight already on what you can and can't do, and that's really where I find that balance is just really how far can I take this my practice and any experience leadership experience I have here without harming the other side of that, it's the way.
Thank you. Absolutely. That has been a very, very big theme for me. And we think about the Bodhisattva vow. I gave a talk being a Bodhisattva with boundaries, you know, because it is in us to want to give and give. Many of us give and give. And it's so, excuse me, it's so beautiful, right? We're helpers. We want to give, we want to help each other. Specifically with family, I feel this, this is what is proper. This is what you do. You take care of your family, of course. But there is a point where it can be harming yourself to a degree, right? And there's no like hard line for that, no answer that's like a cookie cutter answer. Um, but it's really important. I mean, I go to meetings on this now. I'm really working on my boundaries and dealing specifically with someone who has major depression, anxiety, and other things. So it's very, I often just want to like fix it and save her. And I can't. And I realize that, but intellectually, but I keep wanting to do it. And I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry. But it's really hard.
I 100%, of course I don't know your experience, but I 100% can relate. Because one of the things not necessarily question, open discussion, so to speak, but one of the things that I want to ensure I do is that if I make commitments to do something for the Sangha, then I can commit to that. But I do struggle sometimes, as some of you've known, with if there is something that happens, I do have to step away. And I feel a lot of regret and a lot of remorse for putting that on others. And of course, I have an incredible group of Sangha members here who never let me feel any sorts of suffering towards that. They're incredibly insightful. I'm honored and appreciative of every single one of them. But me personally, I take on that. I am, as they say, I am re-stabbing myself with that poison arrow constantly and won't let it go.
I can completely relate to that, and it's comes back to self-love, self-care, Sometimes it's just taking a 5-minute walk, taking a deep breath, if that's all you have time for, pausing, really bringing the practice in, really being present, like I see the table, I'm sitting on the floor, I'm here. All that stuff is so helpful. And the Sangha is so beautiful and helpful. Community, you can't overestimate the power of community. And community is very tricky. We've had drama, we had to have some like communication meetings. Whenever you get a group of people together, it can be tricky too. So yeah, I think again, intellectually we all know we must take care of ourselves. It's the old, the airplane's going down and you put your oxygen mask on first thing, right? But it can be very tricky. So I just encourage you to be loving and kind with yourself whenever possible. That's so key, because we are often so hard on ourselves. I don't know why we do that, but it seems to be across the board for most of us to be our own like worst critic, And so I guess, noticing when we do that and going, huh, not trying to push it away because that we know that doesn't work either, but um baby steps and loving kindness go a long way. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate that. And when we get a chance, Yuki, I'll do a lay ordination, but we'll keep it in the pocket until then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Haru, and thank you, Nina, for the conversation. I just coming back from Japan, realizing how hardworking people are over there, and it's good in a sense. And I also sensed something that's hidden underneath, and I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. No,
Mhm.
I really appreciated that, your input.
Yes, Nina, I too. I'm attending Gyokei's ordination kind of prep and just kind of following along. I'm considering ordination as well, but I really don't know how it'll work for myself, just given my age and health. But I really appreciate your openness, and Horio too, you too, about the self criticism and the self worth, and trying to just do and help. Um, but yeah, and that's something that just very recently came to mind for me when I realized, when I was sitting and had a breath of self love, and I thought, I don't think I've ever felt that before. So we do that to ourselves, and I really thank you for speaking to that. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
I invited um, well, actually, I put you on the spotlight, Leyu. Um, when we're talking about, well, I guess there's a connection between yoga and Zen. I had another friend, I guess, not somebody else who spent time, Tazahara, Shosan, or Vicky from San Francisco. Um, and I thought it would be a good opportunity because I'm a terrible I'm, when it comes to yoga. So I don't know. Would you mind maybe sharing something in sort of your take of yoga and Zen specifically as one of our friends here, Dharma families. I asked you to share our practice with us in a coming weeks. So yeah, your own sort of insight on this, because I don't.
Was that for me to share about yoga and Zen?
Yeah, could you?
Absolutely, of course. Yeah. So again, I'm a California girl. So I like to take from different lineages for my yoga practice, right? Um, Hatha yoga, which is the most sort of common yoga, is sun and moon. That's the word. So you can see there's a connection there with Zen, with these kind of like allegedly opposing, light and dark, sun and moon. Um, Yoga, of course, was created to prepare our body to meditate, right? So that's why there's so many hip openers, and um, so there's that connection right there. I don't really go too much into like Hinduism versus, because my yoga is pretty casual. And actually now what I teach mostly is very gentle yoga. And I'm a big believer in everyone can do yoga and there's no levels in yoga. If you're breathing, you can do yoga. This can be your yoga. And I think that's so beautiful. That's there, you practiced. Standing on your head, all that stuff. It's fine. There's a place for that for some people in their practice. It's not in my practice anymore. And I think there's, again, this beautiful lineage that I love to think about, couple thousand years old. And there's a reason that these two have stuck around. There's some truth there, right? And there's a lot of healing there. So in our retreats, we usually do yoga before zazen because it really helps with the sit. Any stretching, um, and of course the kinhin helps as well. But let's see. So I was trained in Hatha yoga and Kundalini yoga, and I don't know if any of you know Kundalini. Kundalini was Yogi Bhajan and got really popular in the '60s, and it's a lot of like fast movement that kind of made people feel like high, for lack of a better word, kind of. And that's, I think, how part of it got popular. It's a lot of like fast breathing like that, and not really my style so much. We do sometimes when I start a class, we do some circles like this. That's a Kundalini warm up. Um, and the Hatha, I did Ashtanga, which is another like more formal practice years ago, which is very, very like, I think it was created for teenage boys. Like it's really difficult. And you start with your warm up is doing 5 sun salutations. That's just the warm up. And then there's a set series of postures, of poses that you do after that. And people love that because people like, to know what's coming next. And also, it's a great workout. So, of course, there's the workout thing here in LA, which is fine. Some people, want it to be more traditional, but that's kind of where the power yoga came from, Ashtanga. And then there's Iyengar yoga, which is you hold this posture and you just think, I cannot believe I'm still holding this posture. I think I'm going to die. When are they going to let me out of this? I can't stand all the stuff, right, that happens in our brains in Zazen. So there's maybe a connection there. And in Iyengar, it's not a set series, but Mr. Iyengar, this famous teacher, I'm practicing with someone who practiced directly with him, actually on Zoom still. Thank God for Zoom, right? I don't know how we would have survived without this. But so yeah, that's kind of, I went to power yoga, I went to Ashtanga yoga, I went through Kundalini, all these different forms. And then at some point I tried Qigong and Tai Chi. So sometimes in my class, I'll bring a little bit of that in my own, mixed up style. So I believe like whatever kind of breath and movement that you can do is so healing. And I don't know, they're so interconnected. It's hard for me to separate them really. It's like, it's so hard for me to explain why I practice Zen now. It's just a part of my life. And one thing I know is when I do my Zazen, my day always is a little better. And if I don't do it, there's always this little undercurrent of like, something's not quite as easy. So, very, again, very practical, like it just works, right? It's just, and there's this really authentic, beautiful feeling to both yoga and Zen for me that has always just been like home, you know? So I don't know if that answers that question either, but that's my that's my those are my ideas around it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be asked to sort of tell your story. I thought, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I do have a story.
Is that wonderful? Like, yeah, then when people ask you questions, like, yeah, it's the deeper
Yeah.
part of your story comes out. Yeah. Um, Lena, sorry, and Moksho, thank you for joining. Or like, let you have any questions. We have a little bit of time, right? And it's coming closer to the end. So
Well, actually, okay, you asked the question I wanted to ask. I think yoga, it brings you not only a bit of a physical challenge if you want it to, which you don't get in Zazen aside from working through the pain. So I think yoga is really a huge part. It could be really a huge part of the self-care aspect that you were talking about. It's a time to focus on your body and let that stress go. I've been doing some somatic exercises lately. I don't know if you incorporate those in at all. I think they're all very similar to yoga in a way. But yeah, having that body awareness and being able to let go of some of that tension and stress, I think can only help your Zazen practice in the long run. Yeah, I really appreciate hearing your story. And yeah, you beat me to the punch with the question, so I will try and think of another one. It's been lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for
Oh.
sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you. And you brought up a really good point. Connection, right? The illusion of separation can disappear, even if it's just for like a moment, because most of the time we're up here, right?
Yes.
And so we can ground down in our body, and that is so healing. And again, you don't have to, do headstand or whatever to get there. You just take a moment, breathe, and root down. And it's absolutely really good self care to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for bringing that up. I mean, that's definitely a theme that goes across both of those lineages. That's really key. And we get so distracted with the past and the future. To have a moment to just ground and be in, basic Buddhism 101, be here now, is so powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
to have that as part of your mission in life is And can you imagine if people like everywhere were being more present? I think it would transform so many things that feel so dark, you know?
I agree.
There's this Ed Brown who wrote the Tassajara Bread book. And he has a book. I was looking for it this morning. I couldn't find it. It's The Most Important Point, I think it's called. And he talked about Suzuki Roshi saying, in Zen, we're walking in the dark. We're walking in the dark. And then Ed Brown said something like, and when you walk in the dark, you're careful. Like, you know, you might bump into something, but you're not going to knock it over. But when you're in the light and you get in a hurry, often you knock things over. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And the theme of light and dark in Zen, you know, is, you know, there's what is it? There's light in the dark, but don't see as dark. There's dark in the light, but don't see it as light. Like, okay, Zen.
All right. Thank you for confusing me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any more questions? Still got a couple minutes.
Okay, I thought of one if nobody else is going to pipe up. What brings you back to your beginner's mind?
Oh, that's a good question.
We've been talking about that in our.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that beginner's mind. It's full of possibility. It's wide open, right? And the expert's mind, there's few that's very like, I know what this is like. I think it's just life, you know, there are things that kind of snap you in and out of it. Certainly sitting, certainly yoga, but there are events in life where I don't know, it feels like the blinders come off. Um, Such beautiful moments. I mean, sometimes just passing someone on the street and they give you this really honest, beautiful smile, and you just like it transforms your day. So lots of different things.
Yeah,
Something like that, right? And just a reminder, like being with all of you, practicing, being together, sharing. It's yeah, I love that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for speaking to us. I'm really interested in doing yoga as a practice and teaching it eventually. I don't know if I'm ready yet, but that's definitely something I want to venture into. And coincidentally, I just finished Brad's book, There Is No God and He's Always With You, just yesterday. So it's kind of interesting. And he was talking lots about Tassajara in that book too. So yeah, it's kind of nice that you mentioned that. But I'm just wondering, like, what's your best tips for someone that's looking into teaching yoga and kind of looking into that path, I guess.
I would say, I mean, go for it. Just do it. Don't worry about whether you're going to teach or not. Like I said, I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to teach. And here I am, what, 19 years later, it's been my main thing that I do. If you're called to do a training, do a training. I would uh, not rely on it financially so much. It's very tricky. I don't know. Here it's like very competitive. I'm very lucky. I have a few private clients that are very loyal to me. But there's, you know, it's Los Angeles. There's like a yoga teacher on every other block
Right.
and a lot of different styles. So I would recommend like looking into, I don't know if you found like, I found this guy, Jim, and I was like, this is the person to train with. If you found that, I would say don't hesitate. Just go. And if nothing else, you'll have this experience where you get to definitely deepen your practice and definitely get to know yourself or your no self a little
Mhm.
better. Yeah. I
Awesome.
would really encourage you to please go for it.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for being here. It's an
Thank you
honor.
very much, Nina, again for your time and
My
sharing the
pleasure.
story. Yes. Regit, so how should we conclude the session?
I thought if everyone's okay, we'll chant the four Bodhisattva vows and then do the universal transfer of merit
Okay.
and some prostrations if we're able. If you're not, that's okay. Four Bodhisattva vows. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it.